Hello, YouTube family. How are you today? Boy, does this look like one very big mess. And that's not all I'll be using. This is just the main parts of it. That is a lot. There's two of these trays. Yeah, this is a fidget spinner, guys. Doesn't that sound crazy? I have been looking for probably 2 months. Yeah, close to 2 months for a lazy Susan. And guess what? There is none. None to be had anywhere. I could go spend $8 for one at Walmart. That's fancy. But I don't want to spend $8. And I've been to all the thrift stores and nobody has a lazy Susan. So I got me a fidget spinner. And I got tricked into buying this because I was at a thrift store and the lady said, well, why don't you just buy a fidget spinner? I have one. So when she rung me up for a couple other things that I bought and I looked and seen what she charged me for this fidget spinner, $5. $5 for the fidget spinner. Are you kidding me? I could have gotten one at the Dollar Tree for $1. But that's okay. It's heavy. Really heavy, really heavy and thick. So it can handle what I'm doing, right? Right. That's how we're going to look at it. So, maybe she knows something I don't. I also am going to be using some dowel rods, but I haven't gotten them painted yet. They're not in the picture. I got to do that. I got to get on my butt and, get around to doing that. So, I'm going to pause this video for right now, get this stuff together, get everything unpackaged, and get things around. I also have to get, just get everything ready because this video is going to be a long one, guys. I'm sorry. Okay, guys, before we get into this video, I have to tell you, unless you seriously need to make this for some reason, don't do it. This took me about 4 hours and it was really expensive to make for a Christmas craft. So with it being this late in the season, unless you really want to make this and you have time to kill and you just like it because it's pretty, I would hold off on doing this or just do it for another holiday. Whenever I'm working with lights, I always check them first, and I check them throughout the craft. If I'm constantly working with the lights, the last thing you want is to have your lights mess up and not know it during the making something. I'm checking them constantly. Here I've gone ahead and found the center of the bottom tray underneath, and I use E6000 and hot glue. This makes sure that it bonds quickly with the hot glue, and the E6000 gives it a steady, firm hold for a long time. On the top tray, you'll see that I have painted the underneath gold, just so it looks clean, and I made sure that I had it marked. Also, when it came to the bottom tray, I made sure that it did spin around. You'll see that also here in a second. That way I knew that the fidget spinner was working. And I also put some weight on it to make sure that it would hold up and, that it would still spin. And it worked perfectly. The only problem was when I got everything together later on, because of the weight of the lights, I had a little difficulty. I used my glue gun to puncture a hole through the top one because my lights have to come down through here. So that was one step that I did. And I took these tall shop glasses, the plastic ones from the Dollar Tree. I put a hole down through. I was wiping off the hot glue. Through the bottom of both of them, and I will be gluing these together after I string the lights through, but I wanted a good size hole in them. After putting the hole in both of them, I take my lights and I string them down through the top tray and then through the inside and out the bottom of the one that's going to be on the top, and the bottom and out on the one that's going to be on the bottom. And then carefully I make sure that the wire isn't in the way, and I E6000 and hot glue these together bottom to bottom. This is going to make my center pole, plus it's going to be lighted. And I keep checking the lights constantly. You want to make sure your lights don't get pinched, and make sure that the hot glue does not melt through your lights whenever you glue your lights down. You want to let your glue cool just a little bit before you put your lights, because the wires are really thin. This way your wires don't melt. Here I'm using E6000 and hot glue, and then I'll press the two bottoms together to make one solid piece. You want to make sure that your wire is out of the way at all times, and make sure that you're not going to pinch it. I always, again, I'm checking the lights to make sure they're working. And from this point, I wanted to make sure that where I'm going to glue the shot glasses to the tray, there's no paint in the way, because the glue does not want to hold to paint. So I scraped some of that off, and I'm double checking my lights, and then I'm getting ready to E6000 and hot glue this down. And I'm going to have a string of lights, both two strings of lights coming out, because I'm going to wrap these lights around the underside of this also, so that there's lights shining down onto the bottom tray. And here I'm checking them again. You'll see what I mean. And then I do the same when I go to fasten them down. I'm scraping just a little bit of the paint off, putting a little bit of hot glue, letting it cool just a little bit, and sliding the lights down into it. Not where the lights are themselves, but the wires down into the glue, and wiggling around to make sure that it's stuck in good and tight. And I do that all the way around, and then I double check to make sure the lights are still working. And then from here, I just go ahead and I start with working on the rest of the tray. I took two of the round pieces of styrofoam and glued them together, but I had to take one of them and cut a place for the battery pack to slide into out of the way. Plus, I made sure that there was a way for the wire to have room, that's coming up out of the bottom, from the bottom up into the top tray. I had to do a lot of cutting and figuring on how to work this so that it looked neat. I lost some of my footage, so you didn't see where I painted the part of this battery pack and the black part of the wire. I painted it over with gold paint, so you couldn't see it. I also lost the footage where I took the silver ribbon and the silver jeweled ribbon and put it around this to decorate it to make it look nice. I also took Mod Podge and smeared it all over the top of this because I am doing a wintry scene. And then I grabbed my artificial snow from the Dollar Tree. I think just about everything except for this big silver tree came from the Dollar Tree. I'm not sure until I get a little later on. I think the lights came from Dollar General, but I'm actually glued it down here to the tray, and This is what I'm doing here, and I'm lining it up with that light. I'm using just hot glue here because E6000 does not like to work um, with styrofoam. So I'm lining it up so that the light itself, the wire, is tucked up under where it should be and off to the side and still keeping everything centered. This was not a craft that was easy. I do have it standing inside of a glass vase so that it had some stability while I worked with it. It just was a very difficult craft, really hard to do. It was not easy at all. Um, it's very time consuming and nerve wracking for sure. But it turned out very beautiful in the end. I'm glad I did it. It was a very big challenge for sure. This is the part I absolutely loved about this. I took single strips of the gem ribbon and I cut them down, and I'm showing here how I was like kind of guessing how much I would need. And I cut them down into just single strips, and I glued them from the top of the tree to the edge of the tray. And it took, I believe it was 16 pieces to go all the way around. And I absolutely loved how this turned out. It looks so pretty. Um, you did want to stop here at one point and make sure everything was tucked away up underneath where it needs to be before you completed it. Uh, and I just went from one side to the other, back and forth until I had the whole thing done. Um, this really turned out really nice. I love the bling. I did put a row of 2 gems around it. I also, at one point, after I was done putting the pieces from the tree to the tray, I took a half width of the silver ribbon, put it around the top of the tree to cover the where all that was glued at the top, and then folded the excess in, and then put a red berry, one of the big red berries at the top, and it just turned out really, really pretty. I had gotten a couple of different phone calls when I was doing this, and I think with some of the phone calls, that is when I had lost some of my footage. I'm not sure if it had kicked it out and put it on pause or turned the recording part off or what had happened. But I'm sorry about losing some of the footage of some of the things that I did. So I'm trying to make sure I touch base with you on every single step that I did. Because this is a really hard tutorial to do. And the filming part that I do have was about 45 minutes, and this took about 4 hours to do. This is where I was folding the ribbon down over at the very top. And I'll tell you, I love this makeup spatula, the silicone makeup spatula from the Dollar Tree. It has saved my fingers more times than not. And I'm putting that big red berry on the top. It is about the only thing that is not silver, white, or gold on this. Here's the bottom tray. I've set 2 of those in there real quick just to give myself a reference point. They're not glued in. And I just start E6000 and hot glue and start setting these on. I did realize when I was almost done that the weight of that battery pack really affected how this stood up at the very end. So I did have to put the wooden dowels on and turn this actually into a whole carousel. I was originally going to just leave the carousel part out and just make it look like a winter wonderland, but I did need the stability of the wooden dowels on the edge. And I'm using E6000. I'm staggering them, one front foot, one rear foot, and then the glue on the opposite front and opposite rear on the deer, and just putting them on here. I was going to put a sleigh on here, but it didn't look right, so I left the sleighs off and just went with the deer and the white trees, and I just added them and put them in different directions. And there's how it turned out when I was finished putting the last deer on. I really liked how this turned out. It just looks so pretty. I did take some Mod Podge, smear it on here in different spots, add some of the fake snow from the Dollar Tree, and I also put some around the feet of the deer. This is the top, and you see I've already added the paint. I have put the bling around it, and I'm getting ready to actually put some E6000 and some hot glue, and doing this with that extra weight on the top and trying to aim at the camera was not easy. So you can see I've already got the snow on the bottom tray, and trying to balance everything and get this all put together. The very last part was hard, but I got it done, and just E6000 and hot glue. And this is the part where I realized that battery pack really threw the weight of this off, and I had to go ahead and cut some of the dowels to put on the edges. It did stand, but the battery pack made it lean a little bit. But it turned out really pretty, even with the white dowels in here. And you'll see that in a little bit. So I was testing it out and making sure it was going to stand. I was kind of leery of letting go of it. And then when I did, I was like, okay, this works. And then I kind of decided to go ahead and give it a little turn, see if it's going to hold, and it did. And that's when I realized that battery pack was a little too heavy. So this is where I lost some of the footage. So here's the finished product. You can see where I put the dowels in. You could see the lights up underneath. It is very pretty. I had it on at night, and it was beautiful. And with the white deer in the snow, it's just really classy. And then with the lights inside of those shot glasses it just really topped it all off. The very top with that silver tree with the silver gem ribbon, and then that very top little piece, that red berry, just set it all off perfectly. I'm really glad I did this. It was a long, long craft, but it really was pretty. And here is a video of it. While I was trying to turn it, it kept hitting on the candy dish in the back. I probably should have moved the candy dish off the thing, but